Probably one of the biggest things I find is that students don't answer the question. And that's not just me, that's like the general consensus across every single HSC and marking or assessment that's ever happened. Okay, so what I want you to now do is have a read through your topic sentence and have a look at whether you've used any of those words from the question in your topic sentence.
Okay, should we just go to pick personal insight from migrant experience with others?
No, you haven't. Okay, so that's your best indication that you haven't actually answered the question. The reason being that you haven't used the words of the question. Right now, some teachers do say that you shouldn't just use the words of the question, you should try and use synonyms. 100% agree with that, but not straight away. What I would do is use the words of the question, but make it your own sentence. I think a lot of the time people are told don't use the words of the question directly, but that's if you're going to just say something like, in my view, poetic techniques have been used to reveal memorable ideas in Chinesky's Poet Migrant Hostel. Can you see I used the words of the question, but I just said nothing about what those memorable ideas are, what poetic techniques have used. I've just literally repeated the question. And then I'm just going to, and what a lot of students do, they just start their own answer, right? Like that is definitely not engaging. So you're on the one hand where you're not using the words at all. And I don't want you to go to just repeating the words of the question. So let's pick out some of those key ones that you've just underlined. That's great. And see how we can work those into your sentence, your own sentence. Okay, so let's start by looking at, so what do they mean by poetic techniques?
Like simile, symbolism.
Yep. Great. Okay, so like figurative language. Perfect. And then what are memorable ideas?
Like the important ideas in the poem.
Yep. Great. The important ideas. Excellent. So, you know, when something's memorable, it's like you remember it, and that's great because it's an important one, right? And so what is it that you think those important ideas or those memorable ideas are in this particular poem?
Like hardship,
yep,
alienation, and displacement.
Great. Excellent. Okay, good. And so why do you think those ones are the memorable ideas?
Because that's what the migrants experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they experience. And if you even think about your own life, not necessarily like, you know, you may not be a migrant or, you know, people aren't. So what is it that you can relate to there? Or like, even if you're not a migrant, you know, is there anything you can relate to when we think of things like hardship or displacement? Like, have you ever experienced hardship in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. And it would just be a totally different situation, right? But it is still something that what we call a common human experience. And one of the key things to keep in mind when you're answering any question, or when you're, you know, like when you get a question that isn't necessarily this one, it's a different one, what they're always looking for is, how does this relate to the human experience? Okay, so anytime they ask you about a theme, it's basically just, you know, how does this relate to the human experience? So if you think of examples of themes, we usually think of things like love, hate, conflict, hardship. And again, that's something everyone experiences. And then, of course, this particular text will be showing it to you in a particular way, like through someone's specific experience. Okay, so what I'll get you to do is, can you have a look at where you could incorporate both, like ideally, if you can do view, poetic text, and memorable ideas, if you can do that in one sentence, try that. Or if you even just take, let's say, memorable ideas and then talk about view in the next following sentence, you can do it that way. But just have a go at seeing if you can use some of the words of the question in your topic sentence.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. That's an easy substitute. And now tell me what those memorable ideas are. You might want to steal that from your next sentence.
Okay, hardships and alienation.
Yep.
Remember, there's a hardship and alienation. Using poetic techniques. I'm not sure how to connect it to this part.
That part, okay. Okay, so Shinesky's poems reveal memorable ideas of hardship and alienation using poetic techniques. So, I kind of like what you have in the next sentence, because through the eyes of a child is a bit metaphorical. It's not actually through a child's eyes. It's a poem that you're reading. So try to kind of stay away from metaphors. So what's a more sophisticated way of saying eyes of a child?
Through a child's perspective.
Exactly, which is great, but I don't actually think you really need that because it's more about him being a migrant more than the fact that he's a child. Okay, so what we might do is let's highlight this, and now we've already got hardship and so you've got hardship and alienation, but that's okay. You can bring displacement in later. So using poetic techniques. Okay, cool. Maybe let's say we delete that. Can you connect that sentence now? So read it aloud.
Shinesky's poems reveal memorable ideas of hardship and alienation using poetic techniques faced by migrants as they struggle to find stability in a new country. It's just some of the things shown.
Okay, so it doesn't quite flow, right? No. Okay, so how could you make that connection between techniques and faced?
Using poetic techniques. Which is faced? No. I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, cool. So let's go from here again. So Shinesky's poems. Or how about we go Shinesky's poem because we're doing that particular one, right? So migrant hostel. We always identify that in the first sentence. Should that be reveal or reveals?
Reveals.
Great. Memorable ideas of hardship and alienation using poetic techniques. Okay, so that something. So some kind of show word, but don't use show because that's like really generic.
Demonstrate.
Great. Can you write that in?
Mm-hmm. That demonstrate.
Yep. The maybe struggle, so we can take that part and bring it earlier.
Oh yeah, the struggle faced by migrants.
Faced by migrants. Okay, so now what can you delete?
All of that?
I wouldn't. Oh yeah, okay. Oh, let's try it. Give it a go and we'll have a read. Okay, have a read of that.
Shinesky's poem Migrant Hostel reveals memorable ideas of hardship and alienation using poetic techniques that demonstrates the struggles faced by migrants.
Perfect. Can you see the red underline on demonstrates?
Oh. Is that right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, now can you go and highlight where you've used words of the question?
Yes. Got this one.
Yep.
Memorable ideas.
Yep. You've said what they are. You didn't just parrot it.
And poetic techniques.
Done. Brilliant.